All right. We are like coming at you guys rapid fire, what we would like to call in cornhole as peppering the hole. We are coming at you with another board review. This is for the I would say, well overdue update of the original Dumpster Diver. We are talking about the Dumpster Diver 2.
But before we get to that, we keep it real here at Green Room. We made some sweet shirts. We're calling the shirts DadStoke, and we have such fun, cool sayings. This one
Dad's barrel
serves.
buddy.
These are super cool. You should buy them and help support the channel.
So check out our first drop here. There's even a special edition Green Room Surf Review shirt that will be available for a limited time. Thanks for the support, and as always, we'll see you in the water. Well, let's take a trip down memory lane real quick. So the Dumpster Diver came out back in
like 2009.
What had been happening prior to that point was 6.0, 18 and a quarter, 2 and an eighth. That was what you rode if you were riding like a shortboard. That was it. And then along comes the Dumpster Diver, where it was shorter, fatter, flatter, and it just rocked the world. And I remember like I was on that bandwagon, I picked it up and I loved it. And it was just such a change from what I had been riding basically my entire life. And it felt fresh and fun, and you could catch so many more waves, and pivotal moment, I think, in surfboard shaping. Because since that point in time, every other surfboard has been influenced, whether directly or indirectly, from the Dumpster Diver original design, right? Everything has gone shorter, fatter, flatter, like everything has taken some sort of cue from the Dumpster Diver. And because of that, for the last 15 years or so, we've been riding different boards that have been influenced from the Dumpster Diver. So I think we've been riding some version of that over the last 10, 15 years already. So let's break down the Dumpster Diver 2. Here are the tech specs. The idea came when Dane was riding one of the original Dumpster Divers and wanted a longer, modernized version, actually. So this popped out with a wider nose and tail, more nose and tail rocker, and a more subtle single concave. With these updates and a few other tweaks, it allows this version of the Dumpster Diver to excel in a wider range of conditions and lets you rip as hard as you think you do. I'm not sure about that last part, but...
Well, definitely not very hard if you're one of us.
Keyword, it says as hard as you think you do. So
Yeah,
you think you can surf well.
That's true. If you don't have it on camera, no one can dispute you. Like, oh man, I got super barreled on that wave, when in reality, you're just pocket riding the whole time.
Yeah.
When I was picking up this board in March at Wavelengths, John Lucas and I were talking about it, and it seemed like the Dumpster Diver 2 was more of like a remix of the Sampler. It was like a slightly thicker, beefier sampler, not so much like the Dumpster Diver 2. I don't know. That was kind of like our take on it. Just felt like similar shape, similar outline. Has that back kind of hip to squash tail. If you're looking at the outline of the board, the nose has there's a pretty significant rocker up in the nose. It goes pretty flat through the middle. And then the tail has just a slight flip in the back. If you're looking at the contour of this board, it's single concave all the way through.
So I'm 5'10", 5'11", and I'm 155 to 160.
Okay. I've actually, gosh, I'm going to have to go back and look at videos, but I've definitely packed on a few LBs recently. I'm still 5'10", but I think currently I'm excuse me, I think I'm 166 as of yesterday morning. I know Andrew's over there. I get like Andrew's notifications. He's like working out at 5 a.m. and I'll leave him little comments, but it could be just the lack of exercise, but I'm definitely a little heavier. I'm a neutral to front foot surfer. There's more volume in the front of this board, so that suits me. It suits my style because I'm usually leaning forward or putting more pressure on my front foot. And the fins that we were using were thruster fins. They were Blackstix.
We'll put them in the description below.
Cool.
Yeah, so let's dive in. We rate our surfboards on performance, fun, and value. So starting off with performance, Andrew, how would you rate the Dumpster Diver 2?
My rating is a 3 out of 5. I felt lukewarm on the board. I wasn't surfing all that great. And most of that is a me problem, not a board problem. But I think the expectations of the original did transfer over. And I was just expecting a little bit more. I think that also speaks though to how I surf. I'm more of like neutral back. Steven, you're more neutral forward. And I think you had a little bit of a different experience, and you definitely had more time on the board than I did.
I feel like if it's a really good board or a board that you connect with, you can tell pretty soon, like first or second session. And
Yeah,
clearly you didn't have that. So it wasn't like it was one of those magic boards for you.
it wasn't, no.
Yeah. I've been surfing on this board since March. We picked it up right before spring break, and I've surfed it probably 8 to 10 times. So for me, that's a decent amount over the last 3.5 to 4 months. And overall, in terms of performance, I would give it a 4 out of 5. I thought it did a lot of things well. One tip or one notice that I will share, if you are, so I would say my skill level, obviously I'm not pro, but in terms of like your average person, I'm like intermediate, right? Like I can do a lot of the maneuvers and tricks, but I'm not like a ripper.
You're an average surf dad.
I'm an average surf dad. But as always, Andrew and I waffle on like this 26 liter, 27 liter bubble. This one I think was a 27.8. Stock dimensions are like, you'll see them on the screen, but it's like 5.7. And I know the volume comes out to like 27.8. And I have to say that the Dumpster Diver 2, to me, surfed like a bigger board. Like it felt like it was bigger than 5.7. And so my, take it with a grain of salt. But if you're trying to decide between like 1 literage and the other, one volume and the other, I would recommend going lower if you're in like the intermediate to advanced, like average surfer range, simply because it feels like a bigger board. There's a lot of volume in there. And just like if you've ever surfed the original Dumpster Diver, there's a ton of volume. It's like thick and chunky. And this is a little more refined than that, but it still has a fair bit of volume. So with that said, it surfs a bit bigger. It felt a little more sluggish to me in terms of what I was expecting. I was expecting it to feel a little more lively. And this felt a little slower to respond, a little bulkier, but in the same sense, I was able to do some great turns, have some solid cutbacks, even sneak into a couple head dips, which was very exciting. And for that reason, I would rate it a 4 out of 5.
All right, next rating is fun. Andrew, you want to give us your rating on how fun the board was?
Yeah, it's actually pretty similar. It's a 3 out of 5 for me. It was this weird combination of the board feeling big, but it also, when I'm paddling on it, it almost looks like a high performance shortboard. Like I was expecting the nose to be a little bit wider and feel shorter, but it didn't. It felt like a bigger board, and I don't want to say hard to move around, but there was just more substance under my feet. To give you an idea, I've been surfing the G Skate, which is like a 5.4 or 5.5 version, and then I jumped to the 5.7, almost 28 liters, and that was just more of a drastic jump than I think I was expecting. And then you mix that with the expectations that have lingered from the original Dumpster Diver, and so I think that's why there's just like there's a little bit of a gap in my expectations and the actual real world performance. The plus side of the extra volume and the size is that you can catch like pretty much anything you want. Like it's a great paddler.
My rating, I would say, is 4. I like the Rocket Wide more than this board. I like the Flat Earth more than this board. It seemed like those other boards were just a little more peppier. They were also a little less volume. But in terms of fun, I echoed, the similar ideas that you were just saying. Like it paddles well. I was able to catch almost anything that I wanted. I was still able to do a lot of the similar surfing. It just felt like it was a little bit slower. So I guess it's like more user friendly. It's not a super like fine-tuned sled. It's pretty forgiving, and the rails are kind of thick, and so it gives you a little more forgiveness when you're out there. But with that said, a knife cuts 2 ways. And if it's more forgiving, then it's like you're not able to really like dig in and push super hard on it. The conditions that I was able to surf it in was pretty much ideal summer surf. What we have here, I would call it ideal. It was maybe chest high, head high on sets, a little soft, but I found that it was definitely the board did better when the waves were a little bit steeper. It did okay going through flat spots, so it like wouldn't get you through everything, but the board definitely excelled when there was just a bit more steepness to it. I feel like it would come off the bottom a bit better and turn a bit sharper. But I think that's just common, for any board. You have a little more steepness and it surfs a bit better.
Okay, and let's wrap up with value ratings.
And you guess what my rating is? Yeah, it's another 3. I'm just very lukewarm with the board. Maybe if I spent a ton more time on it, I would feel differently. But like you said earlier, Stephen, if you connect with a board real quickly, and I didn't, and maybe it's because my lack of surfing over the last few years. We're a bunch of average surf dads. We don't get to necessarily choose the day or the swell that we're out on. We just get a window to go, and we have to go. And this board will definitely help me catch the majority of the waves and have fun doing that. If I was to pick between the G-Skate and the Dumpster Diver 2, I would go with the G-Skate. I think it just suits my surfing a little bit better. I think there is definitely a type of surfer that's out there that the Dumpster Diver 2 is a great match for. For whatever reason, it just doesn't seem to be me. Thinking back to the times that we surfed together, it looked really good under your feet.
Yeah, well, first of all, that's great to hear. Thank you that it feels good, or that it looked good under my feet. Because the last time we were talking pod mod, I got absolutely bashed for it not looking good under my feet. It wasn't that I'm a bad surfer. It just didn't look good when I surfed with it. So that's great to hear. Yeah, I would say I like the board. I would give it a 4 out of 5. I'm just going to go 4s across the board. I remember talking with Dan. I was like, oh, I feel like I'm finally, I had a really good session on the board. I liked it. That was in the June where we had some waves. But I'm already kind of ready to get back to the Rocket Wide. That's kind of what I want to surf next. I'm really looking forward to doing a Spine Tech Rocket Wide. So I don't know if that's kind of infiltrating my subconscious or whatever, but I like the board, but it's not going to be my permanent go-to. I have 2 other boards that are higher in the queue. But as you said, it's a good board, and I did have fun on it. So with that said, all in all, 4 out of 5.
I know there's a lot of debate out there, half a liter here or there probably shouldn't make a difference at our skill level. For whatever reason, it does for us. For a bunch of average surf dads, we can tell the difference and it impacts our surfing. I don't know why, but it definitely makes a difference. So take that as you want, as you are on your journey to find your surfboard,
Dumpster Diver 2 is not an era-defining surfboard, but it's a good board, and it is a fun shape that will provide enjoyment for many of us average surf people in the water. Andrew, once again, is on the strikeout list because he did not like it. Too bad, so sad. I get to keep it.
If you have any questions about our experience with the board or want to talk shop, leave a comment below, and we will see you out in the water.